I don't know, but what I would say, Cathy, is I'm not sure he'd do this if he had a male boss. I'm really sorry, but I find it extraordinary that a man who's been in the army, who's been in disciplined force, who's been in intelligence, doesn't understand collective responsibility, and that you always, your senior is the person who calls the shots. How on earth he did this, and then having done it, instead of apologising and saying, "Oh gosh, yeah, hands up, yeah, sorry, I'm really sorry," he talks about being intimidated.
It's here now from Diane Hayter, Baroness Hayter, former opposition whip in the House of Lords, so she knows a thing or two about keeping order. Diane.
Good morning, good afternoon. God, I lost the day there.
Well, that would never happen as chief whip, would it?
No, it's because I've got all the curtains closed to keep the sun out.
Quite right, too. Well, where do you stand on this? If you were in the government, whipping MPs to do what they should do, would you say that he should be sacked?
I would. First of all, I think you're overstating it to say it's chaos. I don't think it's chaos. It's a rather junior minister. He's only been an MP under 2 years, and I think he missed the doing the GCSE on governance. Lesson number one is collective responsibility, and we all know that. When I was on the front bench, I wouldn't have done anything without covering it with my senior. You just don't.
Right.
You don't write articles outside, and that's that.
Well, so should
Cathy,
why hasn't he been sacked then?
Well, I don't know, but what I would say, Cathy, is I'm not sure he'd do this if he had a male boss. I'm really sorry, but I find it extraordinary that a man who's been in the army, who's been in disciplined force, who's been in intelligence, doesn't understand collective responsibility, and that you always, your senior is the person who calls the shots. How on earth he did this, and then having done it, instead of apologising and saying, "Oh gosh, yeah, hands up, yeah, sorry, I'm really sorry," he talks about being intimidated. For a man to be intimidated just because he's been told off for absolutely breaking collective responsibility, I am very surprised.
Wow, well, that's fascinating. But you pulled me up on my chaos thing. But here's the point. He hasn't been sacked by number 10, despite the fact that it is, as you say, a flagrant breach of collective responsibility. And he's not the only one who's sort of taking the mickey, because, Stephen Kinnock came on my Sky show earlier in the week. He hadn't got permission to do the interview, and he then proceeded to take issue with the way the social care reforms had been handled by the Chancellor and the Prime Minister. He said they were wrong. He lifted the lid on what had happened behind government closed doors. People are basically seeing that there's no authority in number 10 because the Prime Minister's gone, and they're all sort of jostling for position, aren't they?
Well, two things. One is, of course, this should be Chief Whip who removes, who has some responsibility over this. It may well be number 10. I have to say, if this is only what's being rumoured, this is to try and get them a job with the next boss. If I was the incoming boss, I wouldn't be wanting to appoint somebody who didn't understand collective responsibility and the ability to stick with government policy. We're one government and we all stick to that. If you don't like it, you leave government, and you do it from the back benches, or you become a good Fabian and you write Fabian tracts about it, and you influence government that way.
So really,
what's really important is that all ministers should be able to speak in secret, in private, so they can have very robust discussions, whether it is about exactly the immigration policy or about it's anything else, knowing that will never be leaked, and that it's possible to have those discussions before a decision's taken. And when the decision's taken, sometimes I've won, sometimes I've lost. But, the point of being a collective responsibility, you go along with the decision. So if I was him, I'd be thinking about his position.
Very forthright of you, Diane. Characteristically so, I might say. But, isn't it a human nature that they want to curry favour with the incoming boss? And I know you said he should have no truck with it. But isn't it just, this is a big upheaval, and they're entitled to try and put themselves in the best position for the next guy coming in?
then do that in private. I've nothing against that. Make representations, go to the people around the likely incoming leader and say, look, I'm really interested in doing this area. This is what I've been arguing. And if that's the sort of way you want to go, I'm your man or I'm your woman. So I say, I do find it funny that he takes on a woman boss, but there you are. So yes, do that by all means, but you don't do that in public. And really, these people who've been relatively new into Parliament should have learnt about that by now.
Right. Well, and you took issue with my
Sorry,
chaos
I'm a real
description.
old hat on. It's not chaos, no.
No.
The
But
chaos,
let me justify why I said it, because after this social media post from Tapp, extraordinary post, I admit, the Home Secretary has barred him from viewing any government documents or holding official meetings without first gaining her approval. That's dysfunctional, isn't it? The government can't do anything of use until Andy Burnham gets in nearly the end of July when everyone goes on holiday.
Well, this is quite a small issue, actually, and he is only a junior minister. It's not like doing that to a cabinet colleague.
Oh.
No, I mean, most of government is functioning perfectly well. We've got lots of bills. I mean, I'm really busy in the House of Lords at the moment. We've got lots of stuff going through. Some big stuff about security, about financial markets, and other bills. Actually, the vast majority of the Whitehall machinery and Westminster machinery is working pretty well.
OK. Well, on the policy point that Tapp was making, that foreign care workers should be exempt from the immigration reforms, because obviously we've got a bit of a problem in care homes. You can't get the staff. Do you think he has a point?
Well, I'm particularly sympathetic. I think you and I probably, Cathy, have spoken before, as my husband is in a care home, and with most of the staff actually being born abroad. So I have a lot of sympathy with that. What is the best way forward? I'm not sure. I'm not part of these discussions at the moment, and one's got to be very careful that you will understand. There's always what if? So if for example you did exonerate. Exempt these people. They may come in to the country as a care worker, work for a year or two, and then go on and do something else. Would they then take with them the extra right that they had by being a care worker? Those are the sort of discussions when you're actually in government you have to think about. Would you have to be a care worker for all 5 years or for 10 years or what would it be? And my guess is, and I'm not involved in this, but those are the sort of discussions going on now, that even if your desire is, look, people who come and work in those areas where we most need them, we need to be able to, give them a greater security. You do have to say, well, how long would they have to be in the care sector? We don't want them just coming in, not working very long in that, then moving into something else and taking their extended rights with them. My guess is those are the issues being taking place, which is why he shouldn't go out and about until those. I know they sound like details, but actually you can't come out with half-baked proposals. You've got to get them right before you go public.
So do you hope that Andy Burnham will water down the plans that Shabana Mahmood's put forward, that's quite unpopular with some of the party, to double the time it takes most migrants to qualify for permanent settlement from 5 to 10 years? What's your view on that?
My view is that it does need careful consideration, and we need to be clear, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to get more people into the needed sectors, or are we trying to reduce numbers? What is the purpose? And also, what effect would that have? I know a lot of people who've been here for more than 10 years who've never applied for citizenship, and that may not be their motivation. We just need to know how important that would be, and would that encourage more people to come and work in the sectors? Or should we be trying to get better pay in the sectors? It's awful that some of these people are on rates that some of our own local people won't get. And is that the issue? Is it pay that's most important? I'm not an expert on this, and I don't like wading into policy areas and making my view known when I haven't done the homework. And I'm afraid on this one, I haven't done my homework.
Well, you're very good at swatting up on things. So let me ask you about this final point that has ruffled a few feathers, I must say, around the place. The senior party source who told The Spectator that Andy Burnham would have an unashamedly female agenda, which would be focused on health, education, family finances, issues like safer streets, social care and online safety for kids. They pointed out that he was surrounded by female advisors and backers. He had a passion for, and I quote, female-orientated issues, much less so with the bombs and budgets. And so, therefore, he would be Labour's first female Prime Minister in all but sex. What do you make of that, Diane?
I think the last bit is ludicrous. A first female Prime Minister, Labour Prime Minister indeed. I mean, really. I mean, I do hope that he does hold to that agenda. It is really important. Not only are women half the population, but actually, you know, the roles that women play, whether in work or in the family or in care, is enormously important. And if he really recognises that and makes that central to his agenda, I'll cheer him on. But let's not pretend that's a female Prime Minister. It really isn't. You know, he is a man, and let's not pretend otherwise. I am hoping that it's not just his advisors, but his ministers that will be women, and you know he will have that chance in appointing ministers if he becomes Prime Minister, you know, in the next few weeks. And proof of the pudding and all of that, will he make women, you know, give them the big jobs and give them the not just the jobs that deal with female issues, but actually the big jobs because actually the economy affects everybody, environment affects everyone. Let's see how senior, how many women he's got in senior positions, not just as advisors.
Diane, thank you very much for your time and your forthright views. Great as ever to have you on.